Welcome to episode 12 of Unshakable Promises. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Sproul. Today, we slow things down and take a closer look at one of the most familiar prayers in the world, which is the Lord's Prayer. For many people, this is one of the first prayers they ever learned. It may have been taught by a parent, recited in school, or spoken weekly at church. Some people know it by heart, even though they have not prayed in years. So, because the Lord Prayer is so familiar, it can be overlooked by its depth. Right? We say words without thinking. We can rush through it because we already know what comes next. We may not reflect on why these words were chosen or how they're meant to shape us. This is what this episode's all about. In this episode, we're going to slow the prayer down. Let's look at it line by line and explore why it was given, what is meant from the original context, and why it still matters today. We're also going to talk about prayer in general, especially for people who struggle with prayer, feeling unsure how to pray or feel disconnected from God. This is not about praying perfectly. It's about understanding prayer more deeply and reconnecting it with a simple, honest, and meaningful way. The Lord's Prayer is not just something we memorize. It's something we live into. It teaches us how to approach God, think about our needs, relate to others, and trust the midst of that uncertainty. When we slow down and really listen to it, this prayer becomes a guide for everyday life. The Lord's Prayer is one of the most well-known prayers in the world. People across cultures, denominations, and generations recognize it. It is spoken into churches large and small. It is whispered at hospital bedsides. It is prayed at funerals and memorial services. It is repeated quietly during moments of fear, exhaustion, gratitude, grief. Some people return to it when they do not know what else to say. Something is grounding about those familiar words. When life feels overwhelming, having the prayer that is already formed can feel like a gift. It can also feel like a lifeline when your mind is scattered and your heart is tired. In those moments, it's not about knowing what to say and not having anything to say. It's that you just don't know where to start. The Lord Prayer gives you that start. So as we know, when we repeat words often, they become routine. We say them quickly, almost automatically, without letting it reach our hearts. That is why slowing down matters. The goal is not to criticize tradition. The goal is to receive prayer again with that fresh attention. This episode is meant to slow everything down. We're going to explore the origins of the Lord's Prayer, why it was given, how much each part teaches us something important about prayer. The goal is not to make a prayer complicated or academic even. The goal is to make prayer feel more accessible, more grounded, and more personal. Prayer is never meant to feel intimidating. It's never meant to feel like something only experts do well. Prayer is relational. It's the communication with God who is present, who listens, and who invites you to draw you near. The Lord's Prayer was never meant to replace personal prayer. It was given as a guide, a framework that shows how to approach God and what matters most when we pray. So let's look at where the Lord's Prayer even comes from. The Lord's Prayer comes directly from the teaching of Jesus Christ. It appears in two places in the Bible. One is in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6. The other is in the Gospel of Luke chapter 11. In both cases, Jesus is addressing prayer, but the situations differ slightly. In Matthew's account, Jesus is teaching a large group of people during what was called the Sermon on the Mount. He is speaking to ordinary people about how to live faithfully. He teaches about generosity, humility, relationships, and the trust in God. When he gets to prayer, he directly challenges the religious culture of that time. Many religious leaders prayed loud and frequently in public. Long formal prayers were common. Prayer had become, for some, a way to display spiritual status rather than a way to connect with God. Jesus addresses this directly. He tells the people not to pray to words will somehow make God listen more closely. What he does do is he reminds them that God already knows what they need before they even ask. Then he says something very important. He says, "This, then, is how you should pray." So that wording matters. Jesus does not say this is the only prayer you should ever pray. He does not say these exact words must be repeated every time. He says this is how you should pray. He is offering a model, not a rigid formula. So in Luke's account, this setting is more personal. The disciples come to Jesus with a simple request. They say, "Lord, teach us how to pray." They had watched him pray, and they noticed something different was the way he talked to God. His prayers were not rushed. They were not performative. They were deeply connected and honest. When they asked him how to pray, Jesus gives them that prayer. That tells us something important. The Lord's Prayer was given in response to real people who wanted to learn how to connect with God. It was not meant to be complicated or reserved for scholars or religious leaders. It was meant for everyday people navigating everyday life. Jesus gave this prayer to reset how people thought about God in their prayer. Many people at the time viewed God as distant, demanding, or easily angered. Prayer often felt like something you had to get right in order to avoid punishment or that favor he was going to give you. That mindset created fear and pressure all around prayer. Jesus turned that upside down. The prayer begins with relationship, not fear. It begins with our Father. That alone is radical. Calling God Father implied closeness, care, and trust. It suggested that prayer begins with belonging, not performance. Jesus also structured the prayer intentionally. The first part focused on God. The second part focuses on human need. That order matters. It teaches us to orient our hearts before bringing our request. It reminds us that prayer is not only for asking for things, it's about worship, surrender, and trust. The Lord's Prayer teaches balance. It acknowledges God's holiness while inviting intimacy. It includes daily needs without encouraging selfishness. It addresses forgiveness, temptation, and trust in ways that reflect real life. In a few lines, it captures the rhythm of spiritual life. This prayer also frees those from overthinking their prayers. You do not need special language. You do not need a perfect theology. You do not need to impress God. Prayer begins with honesty and humility. So now let's talk about prayer in general and why it matters. So before breaking down the Lord's Prayer line by line, it helps to talk about prayer itself. Prayer is often misunderstood. Some people think prayer is mainly about asking God for things. Others see it as something that only turns when you're desperate. Some people avoid prayer because they feel unsure on what to say or feel unworthy to even pray. So prayer is simple communication with God. It includes speaking and listening. It includes gratitude and confession. It includes question, frustration, doubt, and even silence. Prayer does not always sound calm and peaceful. Sometimes prayer sounds like exhaustion, anger, or even confusion. God can't handle all of it. If you ever thought, I don't know what to pray, you're not alone. A lot of people struggle with that. Some feel like they need to use some kind of formal language. Some feel they need to pray for a long time. Some feel their thoughts need to be perfectly organized. But in real life, most people pray in the middle of a messy life. Prayer can be honest and imperfect. It can be simple as, God help me, God I need you, God thank you. Prayer is not limited to specific places either, right? Prayer can happen while driving to work, walking the dog, sitting quietly in the morning, or lying awake at night, or in the shower, right? Prayer can be structured or spontaneous. It can be long or short. What matters most is that sincerity. So prayer changes us more than it changes circumstances. That does not mean prayer never affects outcomes. It means the deepest work of prayer often happens inside us. Prayer helps clarify motives. Prayer softens those hardened places. Prayer creates peace even when answers do not come quickly. Another thing prayer does, it also trains our attention. It turns our focus towards God when our minds want to spiral out of control. It brings us back to what is true when fear starts writing stories in our brains. It helps us realize that we cannot control everything. It helps us ask for wisdom instead of only asking for outcomes. Jesus molded prayer as something natural and consistent. He prayed alone. He prayed with others. He prayed before major decisions and during moments of grief. He prayed honestly. His example shows us that prayer is not about perfection. It's about that connection. Some people ask, if God already knows what we need, why even pray? One answer is that prayer is not only about information. Prayer is about relationship. It is about aligning our hearts with God's hearts. It's about trust. It's about learning to live with God, not just asking God to intervene from a distance. The Lord's Prayer reflects all of this. It includes praise, surrender, trust, forgiveness, and even guidance. Those elements are relevant every single day. So now let's discuss the actual Lord's Prayer. So before we break it down line by line, it helps to understand it in its entirety. This is the prayer Jesus taught his disciples when they asked him how to pray. Listen to it slowly, not as something to rush through, but as something to take in. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us for our debts as we also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. So quick note before we go line by line. Some churches include the final lines, for yours is the kingdom and the power of glory forever, and some do not. Many people know it as part of the prayer because it's used widely in worship. The heart of this prayer remains the same either way. The main point in the prayer begins and ends with God, not with us. So the prayer is short, but it's incredibly complete. In just a few lines, it addresses who God is, how we relate to Him, what we need, how we treat others, how we navigate a broken world. Everything that follows in this episode is meant to help these words move more from memory into that meaning. So now let's go ahead and break down Lord's Prayer line by line. Our Father in heaven. So the prayer begins with worship. Our Father tells us who we're praying to and who we are in relation to Him. God is not distant or impersonal. He is the Father. This word suggests care, protection, guidance, and love. For some people, the word Father is comforting. For others, it's complicated. If your experience with your father figure was absent, harsh, or painful, this language might feel difficult. In that case, it helps to remember that Jesus is not saying God is a flawed human father. He is saying that God is a perfect father. He is the source of what fatherhood is meant to be. He is steady, present, faithful, and also good. Then the word our matters too. This is not just individual prayer. It reminds us that faith is communal. We are connected to others. Prayer shapes how we see ourselves and how we treat others around us. So when you say our, you're reminded that you are not the only one who needs grace, provision, direction, or that forgiveness. In heaven reminds us that God is greater than us. He is not limited to our circumstances or understanding. He sees the bigger picture. The phrase balances intimacy with reverence. God is near enough to call Father, and He is holy enough to be honored. So a practical way to pray this line is you begin with your prayer by acknowledging both that closeness and that awe. You might say, Father, you are with me. You are above everything I'm facing. And then we look at hallowed be thy name. So this line is about honor and reverence. The hallow means treat as holy, to set apart, to recognize God is not ordinary. When we pray this, we are acknowledging who God is and recognizing that His character matters, right? In everyday life, we tend to think about everything about us, right? Our problems, our schedules, our stress, our desires. This line recenters that prayer. It says, God, you are first. You are worthy. It reminds us that prayer is not a transaction. It's a worship. So this line is also about God's reputation in the world. When you pray, hallowed be thy name, you're asking that God would be honored, trusted, and known. You're also inviting God to shape your own life so choices reflect His character, right? It's hard to say, hallowed be your name, and then casually live in a way that dishonors Him. This line gently challenges us to change our view. So a practical way to pray this line is you might pause and name something you know about God. God, you are faithful. God, you are good. God, you are patient with me. That simple practice turns this line into worship. Now we go on to your kingdom come. This line is about alignment. God's kingdom represents His way and His values. It's God that reigns. God rules. God's goodness is breaking into our real lives. Praying for His kingdom means inviting those values into our lives, into the world, right? The line pushes prayer beyond personal comfort. It shifts us from God, fix my day to God, let your way show up in my day. It includes justice, compassion, truth, and even healing. It includes quiet work, what God does in the hearts and homes, not only big dramatic moments. The prayer also challenges our priorities. If God's kingdom is coming, then our lives should reflect kingdom values. That means humility instead of pride, generosity instead of greed, truth instead of deception, mercy instead of revenge. It's not about earning God's love. It's about letting God's love shape how we live. So practical ways to pray this line: think of a place you want God's way to show up. Your home, your workplace, your attitude, your relationship, a difficult conversation. Then pray, God, bring your kingdom here. Then we look at your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So this continues the theme of surrender. We ask for alignment between heaven and earth because God's will and our daily reality are different. In heaven, God's will is not debated, resisted, or delayed. It's done. This line is asking for the same alignment with us. This can be uncomfortable because it confronts our need for control. Many of us do not mind asking for God's help. We just want to be the one deciding how that should look. This line asks us to trust God's wisdom, His timing, and His perspective. This is also a line of deep comfort. God's will is not chaotic or cruel. God flows from His goodness. When we pray God's will, we are praying for the best possible outcome in the deepest sense, even when it's not the easiest outcome. It is also important to say with clarity, praying your will be done does not mean we stop caring, stop asking, or stop hoping. Jesus prayed with strong desire and honest emotion, and he still surrendered. Surrender is not resignation, it is trust. So, a practical way to pray this line is you could say, God, this is what I want, and I will be honest about it. I also trust you more than I trust my own plan. Lead me. You want to lean on him to lead you. So then we go on to give us today our daily bread. So now the prayer turns towards our needs. Daily bread represents basic provision. It includes food, shelter, resources, strength, and what is necessary to get us through the day. This line reminds us that God cares about practical needs, not only spiritual ideas. So notice the word daily. This is not give us a warehouse of bread for the next 10 years. It is give us what we need today. That is the challenge for anxious minds. Many of us want clarity or certainty of what's ahead, right? What are we going to receive and when are we going to receive it? God often trains trust one day at a time, right? That's where they say, why worry about tomorrow? This line also protects us from two extremes. One extreme is shame about having needs. Some people feel guilty for asking God for basic things as feels selfish to them. The other extreme is treating God like a vending machine. This line keeps our focus on dependence. It is provision for humility. Also notice give us. Once again, the prayer is communal. When you pray this, you can include other people who need provision. You can pray for families struggling financially, for people who are sick, for those who are lonely, for those who are overwhelmed. Practical way to pray this line is name the need you need today. It might be money. It might be energy. It might be patience. It might be wisdom. Then ask God plainly, God, give me what I need for today. And forgive us for our debts as we've forgiven our debtors. That's another important line. So that line moves into forgiveness. It acknowledges that we are not perfect and we need grace. In the Bible, debts can refer to sins, things we owe morally, or where we missed that mark in life. The point is clear. We need forgiveness. Asking for forgiveness requires humility. It requires honesty. It requires willingness to stop pretending. This is the one reason people avoid prayer. Prayer brings you into that truth. It asks you to look at what's going on inside you, not just outside you. This line also connects to God's forgiveness and our forgiveness. It challenges us to extend grace to others the way that we receive that grace. That can feel hard because some wounds are deep. Forgiveness is not pretending harm did not happen. It's not saying what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness is releasing the right to revenge. It is handing the debt to God. So for some people, forgiveness is a process. You may be able to forgive again and again, and the memory resurfaces. You may need boundaries even while forgiving. You may need time to heal. This prayer is not trying to rush your healing. It is inviting you into that freedom. Unforgiveness keeps us tied to pain. Forgiveness loosens that grip. So a practical way to pray that line is first ask God to show you where you need forgiveness. Keep it specific. Then ask God to help you forgive one person or one situation. You could pray, God, I want to forgive. Help my heart catch up. And then we go on to, and lead us not temptation, but deliver us from evil. So this line recognizes human weakness. It admits that we can be pulled toward things that harm us. Temptation is not about obvious moral failure. It can include bitterness, pride, anxiety, and urge that numb pain in unhealthy ways. This line is also about guidance. It's asking God to lead us away from traps before we step into them. It is prayer for awareness. Sometimes the most dangerous moments are when we think we're fine, when we stop praying and stop paying attention to and relying on our own strength. Deliver us from evil is another strong phrase. It acknowledges that evil is real. It acknowledges that God is stronger. This line invites God's protection over our minds, our relationships, our choices, and even our homes. It reminds us we are not meant to fight every battle alone. So a practical way to pray this line, identify one area where you feel vulnerable right now. It could be anger, lust, jealousy, gossip, even fear. Ask God for a way out before you need to be rescued. Then ask for a rescue when you feel already stuck. Now we move on to, for yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. So the closing return goes back to that focus on God. It's worship. It's perspective. It says God is in control. God is powerful. God is worthy. It also reminds us that the story is bigger than our today's stress. Prayer can sometimes feel heavy, especially when you're carrying heavy burdens. Ending with worship lifts your eyes. It does not erase pain, but it keeps pain from becoming your whole view. This ending also reinforces trust. If the kingdom belongs to God, then your life is not random. If the power belongs to God, then your weakness is not the end. If the glory belongs to God, then the purpose is not self centered. It is rooted in Him. So, again, the practical way to pray this line is end your prayer by naming one truth about God's power or goodness. Even if you feel shaky, you can still say, God, you are still God. So, now let's understand what the Lord Prayer teaches us about everyday prayer. The Lord Prayer shows us that prayer can be simple and deep at the same time. It teaches us that healthy order. We begin with God, His character, His kingdom, and His will. Then we bring in our needs, our relationships, and our struggles. Then we end with trust and worship. The prayer also teaches balance. It includes personal needs and shared needs. It includes physical provision and spiritual direction. It includes confession and protection. It touches what happens inside us and what happens all around us. It also teaches a style of prayer that is honest. There's no pretending in this prayer. It assumes you need provision. It assumes you need forgiveness. It assumes you face temptation. It assumes you need guidance. This is not weakness. This is reality. If you want a simple way to use this prayer daily, you can pray one line at a time and expand on your own words. Start with Our Father in Heaven and talk to God as your Father. Then Hallowed be thy name, and then add worship. Then Kingdom come, and ask for God to shape your day. Then Your will be done. Surrender to His plans. Then give us our daily bread, and ask for what you need. Then forgive us. This is where you would confess. Then lead us. You can do that in 5 minutes. You could do it in 15 minutes. The point is not length. The point is alignment with God. So let's understand why this prayer still matters today. We live in a fast-paced world. The Lord's Prayer invites us to slow down. It grounds us in a relationship and purpose. It brings us back to what matters most. It keeps us from treating life only as a life full of tasks, right? It speaks the need that never change: connection, provision, forgiveness, guidance, hope. It also addresses modern-day problems more than we realize. Anxiety is often fear about the future. The prayer teaches daily trust. Resentment is often slow poison. The prayer teaches forgiveness. Distraction is often a symptom of inner unrest. The prayer takes us back to that focus in God's kingdom and will. Temptation often comes in when we're tired and lonely. The prayer teaches dependence and protection. So if prayer has been hard for you, you do not need to start with those perfect words. Start with honest words. If you do not know what to say, start with this prayer. Say it slowly. Then pause after each line and speak your own words. God is not looking for performance. God is inviting connection. So as we wrap up this episode, remember that the Lord's Prayer is not just something to memorize. It's something to live by. It teaches us how to approach God with honesty, humility, and trust. Prayer is not about saying the right words. It's about opening our hearts. If you have struggled with prayer, this prayer is a gentle place to begin. If prayer has become routine, it invites deeper reflection. Take your time with it. Let it shape how you talk to God and how you live each day. So as always, thank you for listening to Unshakable Promises. I encourage you to carry this prayer with you into your everyday moments. Pray it in the morning when you need direction. Pray it at night when you need peace. Pray it in the middle of a hard day when you need strength. Pray it when you're in the shower. God hears you. God is near. God bless you.